All right, now pleased to welcome in the best coaching staff I've ever been around. I can say that. I'll say it publicly to anybody. And I think what made the Florida coaching staff so good, Billy Donovan, Donnie Jones, Anthony Grant, Larry Shyatt, was you guys were all so different. And I think you guys really weren't worried about who got what guy or who did what and got what acclaim and accolades. You worked together, and it showed because the team worked together too with a lot of different personalities. First of all, everybody good, everybody safe. Donnie Jones now at Stetson, Billy, Oklahoma City, Anthony Grant winning the National Coach of the Year hardware at Dayton. And I don't know what the hell Larry Shyatt's doing. I got no idea. I don't think anybody knows.
Hey, can you get me a margarita?
Shy, how is retired life, first of all?
You know, I did just enough basketball and traveling and going to college games that it was great. It's time that I never had with her in the past. But I got to tell you the truth, man. I need a job bad.
I told you can be my intern. It's fine. I have projects, plenty of projects. I don't pay well, but you can be my intern, and I won't treat you like Billy did when you were on his staff. I'll treat you a lot nicer.
You're not living in Laramie, are you?
No, I'm not. No, hell no. What's go around the horn first of kind of what's the one thing with Anthony, since he was the most successful of all you guys this past year, of what you missed most. What you missed most right now, Anthony? What's the one thing in this pandemic right now that you kind of miss most?
Yeah, it's got to be being around the guys, like all of our guys are at their in a safe place, obviously, with their families and loved ones. And this is this would normally be finishing up the academic year, getting ready for finals. And so you would just be now getting ready to kind of send your guys off to different areas, and you'd have your hands on them a little bit, be able to kind of clean up some end of the year stuff. And we don't get that opportunity to do that. And, obviously through modern technology with Zoom and obviously keeping in touch by the phone or text message, we can do it, but it's not the same in terms of having your group together.
Billy, with the NBA season kind of coming to a halt here, what you think it's going to be back? What are you missing?
Well, I think like Anthony, you miss being around the players, miss being around the group of guys. I think probably as coaches, we're all really, really creatures of habit. There's always like a routine when you get up. You go in, you get prepared for your staff meeting. You plan as a staff to get ready for practice. You go through practice. You kind of come back and watch film on your next opponent. You may go work out. And you're in a routine, and obviously all that's, changed, in a lot of ways. And you're trying to find different ways to be productive and, efficient with your time. And the days are a little bit different. I think when you're in season, the days are pretty similar, like what your schedule is. Now I think it's really a lot different. And I think we're all hopeful that we can get back to playing, but I don't think anybody knows right now. I think everybody's just trying to remain very, very optimistic.
Donnie, what obviously you've got your family around you now. I mean, that's the benefit for, I think, all of us right now. Normally we'd be on the road. You'd be recruiting. You'd be out, at events or whatnot. How much fun is it to have this time, or is it more stressful because you're trying to do both?
Yeah, well, I think it's an incredible opportunity. It's almost like setting the reset button. I think, Jeff, having the opportunity now, as Billy just mentioned, and Anthony, you miss your players. So the new normal is not the same normal. So now your normal routine now is to get up and create a routine. And obviously your family, you have a chance to have some consistency and some momentum. Every day I'm working my son, he's in the 9th grade. I get to work him out every day in my driveway and spend time with my daughters. So they're part of the routine. So for us not to take advantage of that during this time would probably be something we'd regret because we had the opportunity to do it.
Guy, where are you? Down in what part of South Carolina are you down? And is it opening up soon to where you're going to be able to go out and go to restaurants and whatnot?
Well, we're about 30 miles north of Clemson, maybe 40 miles south of Asheville in the mountains here on Lake Kiowee. It's a beautiful area. I think what these guys said, I would echo. Look, there's a hidden blessing in all of this because it's reminded us of what we've missed for many years. In my case, not having an opportunity to be with the kids or two grandkids right now, that's tough. But I think the toughest part for me, even though I got to go to a lot of college games, is just mingling and mixing with the people that you've known the best and the most. I did get a chance to spend 4 or 5 days with Anthony and his staff and Donnie and his staff, but and we had a nice reunion when Coach was so deservedly honored with his name being put on the court at Florida. That was a fun time. But I think just impacting the kids, like these guys would say, the impact you have on young kids. I learned what I was maybe missing in the NBA. That's the biggest difference that I could see from the college game to the NBA game.
All right, so let's get going to the 06-07 Florida Gators, and last team to repeat. And I don't know, Villanova obviously came close the last few years, and Jay Wright's done a hell of a job. But that group you guys had was fun. I mean, it was fun, I'm sure, to coach, although I'm sure you had your challenges with a few of the guys. But I want to know first who was the first to see Joe, because I remember seeing him at the Providence Fan Fest or something like that, and thinking, kid couldn't catch the ball. I mean, literally, he had like hands of stone. He couldn't catch the ball. And he turns out to be one of the great college players, and certainly a hell of an NBA player too. Who was the first one to see him? And recount that story for me if you can.
Go ahead, Billy. I think it was Tommy Ostrom, probably the first guy I think that saw him.
Yeah, Tommy Ostrom was with us before he left, and he was the first one that really saw Joakim and thought that he would really be a great fit. And I think to your point, Jeff, going to ABCD camp back then, in Jersey, he started off as a ball boy, never really got invited into the camp. And I think that summer he really, really took off. But I think Tom Ostrom was really the first guy that really got the chance to see him play and thought that he would be really a great fit for us. And then really just recruited him throughout the course of the summer, and then obviously into the fall. And, we were able to, have him sign with us, which was obviously a big get. But, one thing about Joakim, which a lot of people don't talk about, his freshman year, he really didn't get a chance to play a whole lot. And I think it was a real challenging year for him because guys like Torian Green, Al Horford, and Corey Brewer were pretty significant rotation players at that point in time as a freshman. And I think when you come with the freshman class and you're the only guy that's not playing, that can be really challenging. But I certainly think it motivated Joe going into his sophomore year.
Do you remember ever having a conversation with him after so many kids these days, it's more prevalent now, but, wanted to bounce, wanted to transfer. Hey, coach, you know what? I'm not sure if this is right, especially seeing those other guys in his class get more run. Do you remember a conversation like that?
Well, I don't know who we were playing, Jeff. I think we may have been playing I think it may have been Ohio University in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Maybe we went on and played Villanova. We lost the neck. But I don't know if any of these guys were in the room. I was in the room. He came in to see me, and we sat down and spoke. And
I was there.
Yep. And he basically told me that, he was really looking for direction because the year was really hard. But he had a lot of people around him telling him that he should leave.
Really?
And, I basically told him that David Lee is a senior. He's going to be gone. This has been a great learning experience. And to be honest with you, Jeff, part of the reason why Joe ended up coming to Florida, a big part of it was he never really shied away from competition. And I think a lot of people in the recruiting process told him not to come to Florida because he was going to have to sit behind David Lee. And we really talked to him about being able to compete against David, who was probably at that point in time we felt like had a great opportunity to be a first-round draft pick and was going to play in the NBA, that he could really learn and grow. And Joe, I think, really was excited about that. And I told Joe that, listen, this season's going to come to an end here relatively soon. And then it's going to end up being your time. And you're talking about last year. You need to be thinking about how are you going to be able to step into that kind of position and really, really be able to help the team. But he was always very honest. I think Joe is a guy that he doesn't shy away from adversity. He's not a guy that's going to run. I think he's going to attack things head on. And I think he was just probably a little bit confused because people were wondering, what kind of fit it was for him. because he just wasn't playing. But we had a guy that was an old league player, and David Lee, that was playing in front of him.
Anthony, how surprised were you that team, again, you guys had gone through a little bit of a stretch there where you hadn't got out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. Then you lose what you did, right? I mean, you lose Roberson, you lose Matt Walsh and David Lee, and all of a sudden you kind of hit the ground running. You knew you had some good young kids, but did it surprise you guys as much as it surprised the rest of us?
Yeah, I would say we felt like, the year before, as Billy mentioned, when you have, Anthony Roberson, Matt Walsh, David Lee, that crew that we had, and those guys as freshmen, seeing the impact, the way they impacted that team, not just winning and losing, but on a daily basis in practice, what they brought, the energy they brought, and the way they competed. We felt like we had a chance to be good. And then you add in Lee Humphrey, Adrian Moss, Chris Richard. You had some pieces that we felt like if we hit it right, we had a chance to be good. I think, being honest, when we played in the preseason tournament in New York, and just the way we came out and played there, we all felt like this team could be really good. Now, obviously, you take it one game at a time and you try to prepare as best you can. What a lot of people don't remember about that year, you go from being unranked at the beginning of the year to winning it all. But there was some growth and some adversity over the course of the year. I think we finished what was our conference record that year?
10-6.
10-6 in the league. You know what I mean? And it was competitive. It was a grind every single game. But you saw those guys, the way they fought and the way they grew. I felt like when we went through that, and then we went into the postseason in the SEC tournament and winning the SEC tournament, we got better. And we grew and we learned. So every game, and Billy did a great job of keeping those guys focused on one game at a time and just continuing to grow and get better and what we needed to do to win the next game. And, just to see the growth that those guys made over the course of the year was pretty fun.
Donnie, what was your favorite kind of story? Kind of what I wanted to get you guys together, kind of tell – I almost want to stay out of the way and just kind of hear the stories of that year. Obviously with Joe, with Al being, I forget if his nickname was like the grandfather or something like that, what you guys called him or the team called them. But there had to be so many stories because of the differing, personalities on the staff, on the team, everything like that. What was your favorite one?
Well, there's a lot of them. I don't know if I got one favorite, but one that stands out, and Billy loves this one, is Ric Flair. 2007. We're making that run, and we're trying to figure out second time around. Billy always talked about the different path. We're in the repeat situation, and so we're talking about the different path to get up the mountaintop is going to be different from what it was in 2006. But really worried as we got closer to that Final Four opportunity. We're coming in. We're getting ready to play Butler in the Elite Eight. Butler's got a really good team. We could feel that our guys had a different look on their face before the games, the preparation. We looked really tight. So we started trying to build up through film footage and different things throughout the events of what Ric Flair would look like. So we would put Ric Flair to a highlight clip, and all the players are looking like, golly, what's Ric Flair coming out saying all these things? And then he'd pop off the screen. And then so it built up all the way because we were trying to figure out Billy wanted to bring Ric Flair to the locker room. But we were thinking, well, these guys even know who Ric Flair is. Some of these guys were really young guys. So we had showed him a lot in the video clips, and Joakim Noah was loving whoever Ric Flair was. And so we're getting ready to start the Elite Eight, and in walks Ric Flair during the pregame talk. And Joakim Noah jumps up, chest bumps him, jumping up and down. It was just like an unbelievable excitement. And just to see the tension from our guys just finally take a breath and put their focus back on it. His pregame speech was a typical rant that you guys are the greatest basketball team in the world. And, he was doing his dance and coach was doing the dance with him. So it was a great way for our guys to take a breath and just go out and play. Just go out and play like we were the best team in the world at that time. And I think it really took a lot of pressure off those guys. But it was a really cool build-up, I think, with the Ric Flair story. And then Ric Flair walks in. And I thought that was a pretty cool deal.
I'm one of the few who has seen Billy do Ric Flair. It was on the streets of Akron, and if anybody had a cell phone back then, if I videoed that, I did have a cell phone, but I was not smart enough to video. That would have been TMZ everywhere, because that was a year that you had decided to go back to Florida, right, Billy?
Well, I think there was, just some talk about that. I think it was really after that 2007 season that happened. But I remember we were in Akron.
That's when it was, though, in Akron. It was after.
Yeah, I came back, and then, we talked about that. You asked me to impersonate Ric Flair, so I did it on the streets of Akron real quick. You really enjoyed that, Rick. You really enjoyed that.
Who wouldn't? Listen, I'd enjoy it now if we had you, where we could actually see the whole strut. Everybody,
I had a good teacher. I had Flair be able to teach me.
the motivating tactics shot. What was that like that year to try to get these guys? Because they came back and, Joe could have went and been, a top 3-5 pick. Al could have left. You had guys that could have left and made money. They came back. How hard was it to keep them motivated? And in February, did we see kind of the result of that when you guys went through a little bit of a rough stretch? I think losing maybe 3 out of 4.
Yeah, we lost a few down the home stretch after actually we had cut the nets down, beating South Carolina and winning the league outright. Let me backtrack just for a quick second, because I know when Anthony was talking about the process these guys went through that first year, I got to tell you something. Looking back, I think because Torian Green didn't really get what he wanted and had to back up literally Roberson for that entire year. And the guy was averaging like 13 turnovers a day. I think it was one of the healthiest growths and probably helped our team more than anything. He was a catalyst. I just had to throw that in. And one quick story before we get serious about motivational factors. I got to tell you this one. I know Coach will remember this because he thought it was funny as shit. Hey, look, we are getting ready. I want to say for one of the few teams that's going to press us. I want to say maybe Bruce Pearl's team, because they were dumb enough to press. And so we talked about some press offense if there had to be a stationary possession. And so it really was going to come down to layups, dunks, or Lee Humphrey. We sort of said that in jest. Layups, dunks, or Lee Humphrey. And we're going to play live. So we're going up and down, and all of a sudden we're going fast as heck, exactly what they're going to want. And so I go, whoa, what are we doing here? And honest to God, Joakim stands up and yells, "Yo, pop a shot."
Time out. Let's get it right, Shy, because this is classic. You stopped and you went, whoa. Coach, is that what you want?
That's right.
He said, yeah.
And then Joakim says, "Hey, Papa Shy, this ain't Clemson. This is Billy Ball." Honestly, God, I think people have asked before Billy's greatest attribute maybe is his blessing in basketball. And I think it's just beyond the X and O's. And I think it led to this second championship. So much time spent, whether it was individually or collectively, with players, trying to find out what's motivating them. What do they have to overcome? What problems do they have that we're not seeing? And I know all the time you'd say, "Shy, before we can talk about the scout or the preparation, we got to know what each one of these guys is going through." I think that was the difference.
Listen, Billy, the one thing I always tell people when they ask me kind of about you, and I always feel like you're always in the moment. There's so many other people that, like if I'm talking to you, you're locked in. You're not looking at your phone all the time. Like so many other people, myself included, and other people, whether it's coaches or whatever, you're so locked into whatever that moment is and focused on it. And I think that's a skill that I don't know when you learned it, if there was something in your life, if that's always been you, but I think that's something that not a lot of people have.
Well, I appreciate it, Jeff. I mean, obviously you're such an engaging speaker that I just can't take my eyes off.
There you go.
I think that, for me, I think these guys will agree. There's always like these inflection points that a season never just goes smoothly. Like there's always these really, really difficult situations. And, I think as coaches, you take chances. And we'll talk a little bit about 2007, but I think these guys will remember this vividly. And I think that this could have gone either way. We were 10-6 in the league. We weren't playing well. I think we had maybe 1 or 2 games left in the regular season. And we had really gotten beat pretty handedly by Alabama. And Richard Hendricks, I think, had like 35 points, 15 rebounds. And Joakim and Al, as sophomores, really got manhandled in the game. And they weren't as disciplined as they needed to be. That game ended any opportunity to compete for regular season championship outright. And I'll never forget, we were watching film, and Adrian Moss was really frustrated because he felt like he was a guy that did all the little things, all the right things, and that those guys shouldn't be playing, that they should be sitting on the bench. And a lot of times I think players can get defensive. The thing that Noah and Horford did is they looked at him and they acknowledged that he was right, that they weren't really doing their job well enough. And it was a pretty explosive meeting in the locker room, in the film room, when this happened. And, Adrian and I got into it. And I think what we were all trying to do as a staff, and to Shai's point, we were trying to get Moss to understand that these guys were really a lot more gifted and talented than he was. But he was very concerned about what was going to happen to him being a senior. And we were trying to get him to understand that he could coach these guys and help lead these guys and spend time. But he didn't want to hear that most of the year. He wanted to play. And he always looked at himself as being in competition with those two guys. And I'm going to do all the little things to help us win. These guys are not doing it. And I think Noah and Horford acknowledged that he was right. And then those two guys went to a different level. And I think that's the point in time that we took off as a team that year.
Yeah. Who's got the best Joe story that we can tell? Not the R-rated one, but the best.
Let me finish that story, because
Yeah.
I think it's great what Billy brings up. We go through that, and obviously Adrian wanted a bigger role in terms of what he was asked to do with that team. We're in the NCAA tournament, I think in Jacksonville, and we win the first game, and then we go out and we win the second game to advance to the Sweet 16. And I'll never forget, we're in the locker room, and obviously everybody's happy and celebrating. And, Billy closes it out. The guys are all sitting there getting ready to change. I don't know who else was in the locker room, but I remember you just happened to walk up to Adrian to congratulate him, and he's in tears. And he says, I think in front of, I think most of the coaches were in there. He says, "I get it now."
Really?
I get it now.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like he understood, this is the role I have to play. And he saw the emergence of Joakim, and he saw the emergence of Al, and what they were able to do and what our team had a chance to accomplish. So it took him the whole year. Actually, second round of the NCAA tournament before he got it. And the beautiful thing about it is he was a key piece in us being able to win, against Villanova and Georgetown, and to advance and, get to the Final Four, and what we did there. And then here's a guy that went through that personal, what's my role, how does this work for me as a senior, to the guy that was handing the President of the United States the jersey at the White House after we won the national championship, and he went on and played professionally himself. So I think it's a great lesson in there, and I still use it, with our guys, in terms of guys understanding, every role is important, whether you're a starter or whether you're coming off the bench. So I think that was a great teaching point, and just to be able to witness that, the way Billy handled that in that situation with Adrian, and just his consistency in terms of, hey, here's what we need you to do, and here's, you have value, and then to see it come to fruition, that was terrific.
Well, I think to add on to that, and to finish it up, is when we went back to here just a couple months ago to honor Billy, to have his name put on the court. Joakim Noah walks in, and Billy and Shai were there as well. What jersey was he wearing when he walked out on the court to celebrate Billy's name being put on the court? Was Adrian Moss.
Wow.
He had Adrian Moss's jersey on. And it's a lot because the respect he had for Moss.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's all from that. That's what he was representing. He had Mulsa's jersey on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How much did Noah? I mean, you could see the immaturity of him, and I'm sure he drove you crazy in a lot of different ways, all you guys. But he played hard as shit. We know that. How was he to coach? I mean, I went back to a story. Is there some story that stands out about him that entertaining yet would show kind of what he was about?
Three different thoughts come to my mind real quick. Three thoughts, and they all have a randomness about them, but they all have Joakim Noah written all over. First of all, he was really taken back when he suffered his mono. I mean, I took him to the hospital at 2 a.m. and he had stayed away from any attention until it got to the point they wouldn't let him leave the hospital until he could swallow on his own. It was that bad. But that was the kind of physical toughness he had. And then I always remember the fact that Joakim, if you went to get something to eat and Joakim saw somebody on the street, he always had $5, $10 to hand to that person. He never forgot where he was from. He always knew where he was going. And then last but not least, I will never forget my second press conference at Wyoming. Out of the kindness of his heart, he chose to come for Midnight Madness. And to see him with a cowboy hat and stirrups on, I got to tell you, that's a picture all of you would like.
It's pretty good. Billy,
Jeff, I think the thing with Joakim is, I know in a lot of ways he's a lightning rod, and I think all these guys will attest to this. He was a great guy to coach because he was all about the team. Two stories that stand out to me about him, to speak to him, that people don't see. I never forget this. We'd won the national championship. We're going into the next year, and I had gotten a call from his mother to give me a heads up that Sports Illustrated wants to do an article on he and his father, Yannick Noah. And they want to put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And he agreed to do this interview. And he came into my office a couple of hours before the writer was coming in, and the writer was coming from California. And he said to me, "I don't want to do the interview." And I'm like, "Joe, you agreed to this. This guy's coming." He says, "I don't want to do it." I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He says, "It's going to look like it's all about me, and it's about all of us." And he said, "The only way I'm doing the article is if they put the whole team on the front cover." And Sports Illustrated didn't want to do that, and the story never made it to the front cover. Wow. He was a lightning rod. And I'll never forget this. These guys remember this. We were in the NCAA tournament, and you can imagine, as you move in advance, there's more and more media coverage. So when he goes into his locker, it's hordes of people around him. Sure. And you have Al Horford that's sitting in the locker next to you that's a lottery pick that's really not even getting any attention. And Al loved that because he let Joe deal with it. I don't want to deal with it.
Right.
But what Joe said after that is, "Hey, listen, I know I bring a lot of this attention on myself." He says, "But you guys are the most important thing to me." So I think when these guys saw the things that he did for the team and the unselfishness, it also allowed him to be who he was, because nobody ever looked at him as being a self-promoter or a guy that was just wanting interest. The way he acted, or the way people do, it was like that all the time. It was never a show. That's who he is. But people, unfortunately, don't get a chance to see the stuff behind closed doors.
How different – when all these guys that weren't, I don't even remember, I didn't look back at the numbers, but Al was ranked in the 50 to 75 range. Brewer was the highest ranked, right? I mean, by far, of that group that played. How did that change all of you in the way you recruited in the future? Because in the past, it had been all these heralded guys, right? I mean, Matt Walsh and Roberson and David Lee, and they didn't do what this group did. Which kind of came in with a chip on their shoulder. They worked hard. They were about the right things. Not to say that the previous one wasn't, but how did that change how you guys all recruited as a staff?
Yeah, I don't think, Jeff, I think the reason that team in 2006 did what it did was because of the guys that came before them. Okay. I really do. I think the things that that we learned as a staff about us. I think the things that as assistant coaches we learned in terms of what Billy wanted and what we needed and who we were, what our identity was. And then, it was never really about where guys were ranked. Billy never talked about, hey, we need to go out and get, let's look at who's top 25 in the country. It was never about that. It was more about the skill set, more about the toughness, more about their mentality, the character, those type of things. The one thing I will say, I still use this to this day, Billy, you probably remember saying this. We're at an event watching some guys play, and he had two sayings. He goes, it's not the Melrose games, okay? It's not about guys that can run and jump and all that stuff. And then the best one was, hey, listen, I can help a guy on defense. We can play help defense. It's really hard to play help offense. If a guy can't dribble, pass, or shoot, it's hard to help him.
What were the other good Billy sayings?
Those always stuck with me.
Yeah, give me a couple other good Billy sayings. Donnie, you got any?
Yeah, he said this one to Joe all the time, and I still use it today. You don't know what you don't know. So just shut up and listen, okay? Because you don't know. And he used that one a lot, just especially with Joe, because Joe had all the answers his rookie year.
I'm sure that relationship, you could probably write a book on that one, right?
Absolutely.
Billy, what I guess describe to me that the first national title when you guys won. I remember being on the court and just seeing, it was early on. I kind of transitioned from doing recruiting to covering college and covering both at that point. And I knew you guys so well. And just to see you and the emotion that all of you had on the court, I will never forget it. Honestly, I'll never forget it because you could tell, again, I go back to the beginning, how you guys worked together. And then I saw it even more as I progressed in this, covering the sport, to how staffs just aren't that way. Most staffs don't have what you guys have then and now, to whereas you work together and you could see it in your faces. What was that night like for all of you? What happened after that night? How many beers were consumed? Where did you guys go? What was that night like?
Yeah, Jeff, I think going back a little bit, Anthony and myself and Donnie and John Pelfrey were together, obviously for so long. And then John left and went to South Alabama and took a head job. And, we probably as a staff, including myself, we kind of, as Donnie said, we knew what we knew as a staff. And I think the relationships that were built during that time, it ran a lot deeper than just basketball or this is our job. We were all extremely, extremely close. It was like, I really mean this, we were like brothers. And I'm really, really grateful for the time I had with all of them because of, when you're hiring a staff, when you first get hired at 28 years old at Marshall, I could have never imagined hitting home runs like I hit in the hiring process. I knew Anthony a little bit from Miami High. Donnie was already at Marshall, so I knew him a little bit. John, I coached, so I knew, but you didn't know how it was going to pan out. And I think one thing that helped is when Shai came in, I'll never forget this, like Herb Sendek and I worked together, and Herb coached me in college. So I was looking to hire a new assistant, and I said to Herb, Herb, do you have anybody? Because I think one thing for me in the hiring process, I like to talk to people that I work with or I'm close to because they know what it's like to work with me and what would fit. So he said, yeah, the guy you should go hire is Larry Shai. So I call up Shai on the phone and say, hey, listen, I'm interested, want to talk. And Shai and I knew each other a little bit because our paths had crossed. I had just graduated from Providence. He came into Providence with Rick Barnes, but we didn't really know each other. And I talked to him. He says, hey, Billy, thanks for the call. I'm not interested. And I was like, wow, okay. I mean, it was pretty quick, right? But we ended up talking some more. And then obviously Shai came on, and I think he brought a different perspective to our group, which was really, really helpful.
Some experience, some age.
Yeah. But I think a different way of doing things, and I think Shai probably learned from us and we learned from him. So we were kind of taken from each other. I think that culmination of when that happened, I look at it this way, Shai obviously went through a very emotional situation at Clemson. And I think for him, those moments really kind of put some closure for him on a lot of stuff that he had to deal with and go through in a tough situation. And we all became very close. I think about Anthony and all the jobs that he bypassed, that he could have had every opportunity to be a head coach, and felt like he wanted to stay, and felt like there was, I think the word he used all the time, that there was more for me to do at Florida. And he was never a self-promoter. And I think the same thing with Donnie, looking at situations and both those guys wanting to be head coaches, but saying, you know what, like, I still feel there's more unfinished business here. Like, as a head coach, you don't know the character of people until you get in those kind of situations. And the character that they had and the loyalty they had to me and to the program was really the main reason why we were able to get to that point, because there was a lot of struggles, Jeff, to your point of 5 years of getting knocked out in the first or second round. And it would have been very, very easy for those guys to say, I got to get out of here. They all of them really, really stayed all the way through by my side and helped me in a lot. And it wouldn't have happened without those guys and without the players.
All right, Billy avoided the question.
Which is what?
Like?
It was unbelievable. I mean, what do you mean what was it like? I mean, it was unbelievable. We had unbelievable celebration on the court, and we went back. The athletic department had like a big room for all of us to kind of share time with our families in. It was unbelievable being able to get back to that point, and then just be able to reminisce for Shai to be able to talk about his journey and getting to that point, and Donnie talking about his journey to this point. Same thing with Anthony. Everybody's journey, and you say, my gosh, we got to this point, and it was an unbelievable night being able to share that with all these guys.
Give me I've thought about doing a book on this at some point, and I don't know if it would be a book, but I think it would be fun to hear everybody come up with their favorite in-home visit story. I did a story about it years ago, and there were some great ones. I didn't mention names, but you had, and you guys might know this, but the one coach who went upstairs, had to go to the bathroom, flushed the toilet didn't go down. He came back downstairs. He was an assistant. Came back downstairs to his head coach. He's like, hey, coach, we ain't getting this kid. We got to go. The toilet had backed up. Nothing he could do to get it flushed. So what's your – you have to – I mean, I heard the story, Billy, of you and Pell. Is this true, the story of you and Pell chasing down Mike Miller on the highway, driving all the way for hours, chasing him from like Vegas to California?
We ended up, that AAU trip, you couldn't talk to the players, you couldn't have contact, but we basically drove behind their van from Vegas to LA. Maybe the funniest one, Jeff, or one of the funniest ones, Anthony can talk to this, because Anthony's in a much, much better shape than I am, and the guy looks like a Greek god. We're recruiting Lee Humphrey, and Anthony and I had to go water skiing. You should have seen that one, trying to recruit Lee Humphrey on some river in Tennessee. It was like unbelievable. We're sitting there underneath like some tree at a picnic table. Lee Humphrey's like doing like one ski slalom, so I couldn't even get up. It was unbelievable. I'm like, we must really want this guy pretty bad.
Yeah, I got one for you. So we're recruiting Chris Richard in Lakeland, and so his coach likes to golf. Okay. I don't know the first thing about golf, right? Billy, we go out there and we're on the golf course, and I'm like, just what the hell am I doing out here? I'm like, okay, what club do I use? Whatever. I'm driving probably first time I ever drove a golf cart, right? So I get off my cart, get my club, I go to hit the ball, right? I come back, put my club back in the bag, and as I go to pull off, my bag falls off the back of the cart. I'm like, oh hell, what did I do? Like, so I get back, boom, next hole, I go back, same thing happens. I go to take off, boom, my bag falls off. And I'm just like, what the hell? Right? About the third time it happened, I look up and Billy's just laughing his ass off. He's laughing his ass off. So him and the coach are just loosening my bag up, just messing with me. Just, I got to chase my clubs all over the course for like 3 holes before I figured it out.
Oh man,
that is a true story. I remember that one.
Oh, you must have some good ones.
I got to throw one out here just because I've obviously had unique stories over 45 years. But with Coach Donovan, he comes in the afternoon one day and says, "Shai, Here's what we're doing. Me, you, Duke, and Lewis. We're going to go hog hunting. What? We're going to go hog hunting. Dan Werner and his daddy like to hog hunt. What? Do me a favor later so I don't have to talk about it. Just look up on a video what hog hunting looks like, and you'll never want to do it the rest of your life.
You did it. You guys went hog hunting.
Yes, we sure did. Within the radius of the NCAA, 20 miles off campus. And I got to tell you something, like I said, I've never seen anything like it, nor will I ever again.
So did you see some hogs while you were out there?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
So like I said, pull up a video, and right. I don't think you'll want to do it either.
I'm not doing
really
it.
Like?
Trust me, I'm not going hog hunting anywhere near Boston, Massachusetts out here. Donnie, you got a good one?
One of the things stand out to me more than a visit is your recruiting visit was an official visit with Joakim. I was thinking about when him and his mom came to visit campus. And she's a very artsy lady. And when she come there, she asked for a bicycle. And I know Billy's like, hey, well, let's get her a bicycle, let her ride around. She probably just wants to see campus in a different way. And so went and got her a bicycle, and I asked her, do you want me to ride with you? And she goes, no, I'm good. I'm just going to take a ride across campus, and I'll be back a little bit later. This is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, she'd been going probably at 6 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock. And we were kind of like, well, she hasn't came back yet. Maybe we should get in our car and kind of go look for her. So I'm in my car driving around, just making sure she didn't get lost or she's okay, because she's been going for about 4 hours. And I drive down by the lake, and she's sitting down by the lake right off campus there, and it's full of alligators. And she is meditating down by the lake by herself. So I pull up in the car, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, do I get out and tell her, don't get so close to the lake? Or do I just let her have her moment? So I sat there in the car for about 15 or 20 minutes and just watched until she was finished. And she got back up on her bike, and she took off, and she rode back to the office. And I know it come to the day when she made her decision, when her and Joakim were sitting in the office, and I know Billy and Anthony and Shai, they were like, hey, how do you feel about the visit and this and that? And she says, she goes, I went around campus by myself. She goes, I took in all the students on campus, and I know my son, and I know he fits here. I saw his life over the last couple of days about how he would see it through his eyes. And so it was pretty interesting that as a mother, she knew where her son fit. And the trust she had, obviously, for Billy and our staff, but she had her own way about what she was doing. And I thought that was one of the most unique visits, from a mom on campus that I've ever experienced.
Hey, Billy, before we'll wrap it here in a few, because Shai's got nothing to do. Like, we're entertaining Shai, so that's nice. But the other three, although, Billy, you can't have much to do right now. Like, what you're doing Zoom calls with the team? Like, what else? These guys got to recruit at least. What are you doing now?
Well, we're connecting, with our players individually and collectively as a whole. We're getting on calls, staff-wise, to discuss different topics. There's organizational calls, that we're on. People have reached out, like someone like you, to do the Zoom call, or Lee Klein from 5 Star asked me to do a coaching clinic. Just trying to use the time to learn, grow, get better, look at our team, figure out ways to help them. But like I said in the beginning, it's a little bit different, because to what Donnie said, you get up and you're trying to carve out a routine. And sometimes, because the level of communication is on like Zoom calls or team calls, you're having to block off time, and you got to be somewhere to take the call, which is a little bit different. Yep. So you're just trying to find a routine in this time, but there's plenty of stuff that we can do to try to improve and get better.
What do you miss most? And I don't know if this was true or not. You and I talked about it, but when you left college, there was some frustration when you left at that point with where college basketball was, right? And that was, 6 years in? It's probably gotten worse. I would, and I hate to use that term, worse, because, in some areas, I think it's going to get better. And we kind of put this kind of broad term with it, that college basketball is bad and AU coaches are bad. We know that's not true. we know there's a lot of great AAU coaches, and there's a lot of really good people in college basketball. But why did you, I guess, leave or become – maybe leave isn't the right word. Why did you become very frustrated with where college basketball had gone at that point?
Yeah, Jeff, I don't know if I was necessarily frustrated with college basketball. I mean, I loved my time in college. I think there's this perception, that I didn't want to recruit, and that couldn't be anything further than the truth. Recruiting is challenging for everybody, you know what I mean? And it's not something that everybody says, oh, it's the best part of the job. I think as you get older, the thing I love is the game of basketball. And I always, my whole entire career, had intrigue with the NBA. And I've always had intrigue of just like focusing on basketball. And I think my biggest frustration at the time with college basketball for me was we would get to the end of the season and hopefully you're playing into deep into March. But if you're not and the season ends, we really weren't doing anything with our guys at all from, March all the way till the end of August, when school started back up, and they would lift weights and do those things. And I just felt like there was more that, as a coach in college we could do. Now, obviously those rules have changed since then and things have been implemented where guys can do more with their teams on a year-round basis. But I think that was, I didn't like that, you know what I mean? And I think for some of it, for me, it was just the idea of just basketball all the time. And I enjoyed that part of it. And I missed, some of that and a lot of it, to be honest. Not so much we needed to practice all the time, but ways to help guys get better. And I think you look as a coach, when the coaching profession is so demanding, you really want to be able to do things you really love doing. But I didn't really have a problem with college basketball per se, or have a problem with recruiting. I think it was just more the fact that I love the game and a chance to go to the highest level, chance to learn, a chance to grow. Obviously love Florida, my relationship with these guys and Jeremy Foley. So that had to be right for me. But I've always had an intrigue. I never felt like I got to get out of college. If I would have stayed at Florida, I think I would have been very, very happy. I think in any job, nothing's perfect all the way around. It's just not reality. But I enjoyed my time in college and have really enjoyed my time in the NBA.
Yeah, I bet you don't miss when I talk to Brad Stevens, he says he'll look for people to call now. Like his phone's just not ringing very much. And he doesn't miss, I guess, the grind of the recruiting calls and having to go cross country just to be seen by a 17-year-old kid. Like that's got to get old, right?
I think the hard part for me in recruiting, which I did not necessarily love about it, was we were talking earlier about some incredible stories and incredible people. Even players that we didn't get, just getting a chance to meet people and delve into those situations. Where I had a problem was the wasting of time that on decisions I made to continue to recruit somebody that we probably just didn't have a chance to get. And I blame myself more than anybody else, but I also think one of the things that can help in recruiting, and I think over time, the relationships that get developed, I always love when someone said to me, hey, Billy, go ahead. If you want to recruit him, try, but you're not getting him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm going to move in a different direction. But I think about the amount of times and trips, like this whole pandemic, what's going on right now. I think about the amount of time I invested even in recruiting, and it was a really, really, really good process. But a young man chose a different school. Yeah. I've always said this about recruiting. There's no prizes for second place. You don't get some kind of, reward for trying hard. Either you get the guy or you don't get the guy. But you think about it all the time, away from your family, away from your players, things that you could be doing. But that's part of the job too. I've always enjoyed when people have been straight up and say, listen, this is probably going to be a really, really hard get. Now, if you want to keep trying and you can prove that this is the right place for me, then go ahead. But I'm just being straight up to let you know that it's probably you're fourth or fifth, on my list, and it's going to be really hard to get to number one.
All right, I got one more topic before I let you go, and all of you can weigh in. We'll start with Anthony. This new G League thing, Jalen Green chooses to go to this new program. Isaiah Todd chooses to go to this program. They're paying Greens in excess of $500,000 a year. I wrote something. I don't think this is going to affect college basketball all that much because I think we all knew that the rule was going to come back in at some point. for kids to be able to go from high school to the NBA, and now you're having 2 or maybe a couple more. Eventually, you're going to have 8, 10, 12. Is this what I can't figure out, guys? Is why Adam Silver is doing this? Is he doing this, do you think, to market the league and make the G League better? Is he doing it so that the RJ Hamptons of the world don't go to New Zealand? Is he doing this? My personal thought, and I don't know if this is right or not, is he put all his cards on the table a couple of years ago saying he was favoring the rule to go back to where kids could go out of high school. And now he's thinking to himself, or he's hearing it, that maybe that's not the best thing. So he's going to try this instead to get kids not to go straight to the league, but to at least have a year after high school to go to the league. I don't know why. What are your thoughts on this, Anthony?
The league itself, or
the whole situation. I mean, is this going to crush college basketball? You coached in the league and in college in the last few years. I think you have a different perspective than most people of, is this good for these kids, or is it just something where, again, listen, it's going to happen anyway. What's the big deal? We dealt without LeBron James in college, and college basketball was just fine.
Yeah, I can't say I know whether or not it's going to be good. I think that'll be on an individual basis. But my thought, I can't begin to tell you I know what the commissioner's thinking or what the G League is thinking. But I think I think the opportunity to make the G League maybe the second best basketball league in the world, as opposed to kids needing to go overseas to expand their opportunities to make it to the NBA or to make a living, and be able to provide for themselves and their families. And I think anything that you can create for young people that give them options and give them an opportunity to earn a living, I think it's good. So some kids will look at that and they'll want to do what the Jalen Greens of the world have done and say, okay, I'm going to bypass college. And I think this is the best opportunity for me and my family, where other kids will value the opportunity to go and learn from some great college coaches and an opportunity to maybe work toward or to earn a degree in college. And it depends on the values and what the individuals are looking for. So I think, you look at different situations with every player. Like you look at that team we had in 2006 and 2007, none of those guys would have probably been selected for this G League opportunity right now. And they went out in back-to-back national championships because they were bought into where they were, where their feet were, and being a part of something bigger than themselves. So I think hopefully it'll be something that will benefit guys that maybe are looking for that opportunity to continue to develop and get better and just focus strictly on basketball and earn a living. And it'll give maybe some other kids opportunities to take advantage of what college offers. So I think it can be a win-win. I don't think one necessarily means the other one has to suffer.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this one? I know Billy, I'd love to get
Donnie's been, has done scouting for the Clippers. Mm-hmm. Shai's obviously been with Dallas. Yep. Anthony and I would get it Oklahoma City. This is just my opinion, and I have a totally different perspective on this.
Yep.
I think the thing that the players are dealing with is, what is a better place to develop, the G League or in college?
Sure. This
is the dilemma. So I don't get a chance to watch as much college basketball now, but when I see games, when was the last time you really saw, besides the elite offensive players in the NBA, post up? There's no post up game.
Zero. Because
of a narrower lane, and because the college game, you can play from the low post. I think until we become unified in the rules, where the court dimensions and everything else are the same, it's different. And I can see a lot of these kids saying, you know what, like, I'm a front court player. I'm being forced to play inside. Nobody in the NBA is really posting up anymore. Is my game going to transfer? Now you're sitting there looking at a college coach that says, listen, for us to win, you got to play inside. I look at Udonis Haslem as an example. Udonis Haslem was a dominant low post player. He was as good as anybody ever coached. Guys never posted up for 17 years in the NBA.
Right.
So they got to carve a different niche. So I think one of the things that's the struggle for the players is when you talk about the NBA, the G League is a great platform for those kids to learn the NBA game. Do I think college coaches can develop players? Absolutely. Can the G League? Absolutely. The problem is you do not have the same rules or the same game. So I think a lot of these kids struggle a lot of times when they come up to the NBA, and things that they could do in college they can't do. So maybe in some way that development piece could be better for them by being in the G League because they're going to learn NBA rules. I think that's the biggest dilemma is the kids are thinking, where can I get developed better? It's not like, you know, any college coach is a bad developer of talent. It's just the game is just different. And, you know, I mean, you play the Milwaukee Bucks, they got the best record in the NBA. They got the Lopez twins are out there at 7'1" shooting threes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying guys don't post up at all, but the center just feeding them like it was with Patrick Ewing and Olajuwon and David Robinson, it's just different now. And in college, from the analytical standpoint, you can post up and be efficient. I don't know if analytically in the NBA, unless you have an elite player, if posting up's a great thing all the time, unless you're dealing with mismatches.
So should the rules be the same? Uniform guys? I mean, Donnie, Shai, you can add into this because all of you were in the NBA or covering the NBA at one point. Should the shot clock be 24? Should all the rules be the same across the board?
I think so. Jeff, I know the time I was with the Clippers, you know, and I was on the scouting piece. I know we were looking more than anything, you know, what guys' levels in college, like Billy just said, how it translated to the NBA. What was the learning curve from guys coming in? Those were things we asked questions about. Being in the G League here now, obviously it's going to give an opportunity for the elite players a place to land and be in a position to grow quicker and I think translate quicker. I know guys like Billy, they don't like coaching 18-year-old freshmen in the NBA. A guy like Doc Rivers, who I was with, he didn't want a lot of young guys coming in the door when they had a bunch of veterans on his team. So the learning curve for those guys to have a place to grow other than college, because even certain college programs, you had to evaluate, does that style of play transfer to how these kids have been coached in college by the time that they come to the NBA? And I think there's a big learning curve when they played a certain style of play, and now they're being asked, as Billy just mentioned, to post up, to understand positioning. Can they guard their own spot? Are they two-way players? I mean, there's so many questions that's involved. But I think that from FIBA all the way to college, all the way to the NBA, I think the game should be the same. We have such a learning curve. We're one of the few countries across the world that plays three different ways. High school is different, college is different, FIBA is different, and now the NBA is different. So we got four different ways you have to learn how to play instead of just being one way that a lot of these international players have started at a young age. And so their game translates quicker at the NBA because they played this style of play and they understand spacing, shot clock, into quarters, execution, spacing, all those things that it takes time for us to be able to teach, well, even at the NBA.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to let you guys go. I feel like it's got to be happy hour for Shai any minute, so I don't want to go too long.
5 o'clock somewhere, fellas.
Listen, I appreciate you guys doing this. I really do. I'm sure it's good for me to see all of you, so I hope it's good for you to see all of you as well, and hope everybody's kind of safe and sane out there. And Billy, if you want to end this with one Ric Flair yell, I'm not going to be opposed to it.
Woo!
Thank you, boys.